Welcome back, Midnight viewers, to Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. I'm Father Malone, and as always, here with me, my partner in crime, is Miss Ripley Jean. Partner in everything. Okay, I stand corrected. And I stand here saddened. I don't mean to begin the show on a downer, but I do want to say something about some recent passings. And I'm not even talking about democracy. This is a canine in memoriam. Yes, I am tempted to throw that mournful waif song on here as a joke, but there's no joking when you lose members of the family. Fans of our show know Chris Stashew. His pup Nibbler has passed to the great beyond. I had the distinct pleasure of hanging out with young Nibbler. He was super cool and irreplaceable. As is Mr. Puggles. My co-host on A Little Old Lady Got Mutilated Late Last Night, Paul Waller's longtime bestest of friends, Mr. Puggles, is off to terrify another dimension with zoomies and grumbles. I was lucky enough to meet him once via Zoom, but anyone who's listened to Paul's show A Year in Horror has definitely heard mention of that young gentleman. And all of this is just more proof that we live in a horrifying and chaotic universe where joy, actual joy, is the rarest commodity in existence. I myself have lost a lot of family recently. In addition to the human members of my dwindling clan, over the past few years I've said goodbye to Mr. Van Gogh, a fine orange tabby that loved to fetch and was always deeply embarrassed when I caught him sleeping in my bed. Go figure. After Van, we lost Marbles. Oh, Marbles. She was a sphinx, a mean old sphinx, like a little crone, like a witch, and she fucking hated everyone. And she loved me. She would dance when she saw me coming. And she had the weirdest move. She would stretch and reach up with both paws and do this crazy climbing motion on my leg. Climb that tree, I'd shout. And then there was Frankenstein. Frank was also a sphinx, and with all deference to present company, he is the animal that I vibed with on a subatomic level. My introduction to Frankenstein was, I was sitting outside reading a book, and he kept getting closer, sizing me up, and finally I started reading to him, and he jumped up next to me and stretched out, and that was that. We were inseparable. I miss him. I miss all of them. Every day. Maintaining any kind of mental balance is difficult at the best of times. I can only imagine what Chris and Paul are experiencing. My sincere condolences. I am not going to recover when a certain someone kicks off. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Foxy Brown, if you must know. No one is going to cry when you... I can't even finish that fucking sentence. I almost cried. Trying to think of a segue now. There is none. Okay. Before we get to today's features, I wanted to introduce a new segment. A seasonal segment. It is the Halloween time now. We're counting down the days. As such, it won't just be ghosts and goblins that will come scrambling out of the darkness. So will the Halloween playlists. And they're all garbage. You know they are. So here's our segment. This is Halloween. This is Halloween? Every single playlist is going to have Monster Mash. Every single one. When people were just making mixtapes, Monster Mash. Every novelty vinyl you got around this time of year, Monster Mash. Good. It's a fucking classic. Add it. You know, Bobby Boris Pickett is from Somerville, Massachusetts. That's the same hometown as my late wife. Add the song. I don't care if I just guilted you. If a widower says add Monster Mash, you add Monster Mash. Ghostbusters is acceptable, but only just, and that's only if it's the Ray Parker original. If you're getting it from one of those bullshit knockoff artists cover the Halloween hit CDs, you're way out of line. Thriller, of course. Vincent Price and Thoughts of Zombies, add it. The Halloween theme. Not a novelty song, but it's perfect. Add all the tracks from that soundtrack. That's what the randomizer is for. In between Ghostbusters and Monster Mash, you should hear the tense sounds of Laurie Strode realizing she's being followed. In fact, any torturous horror theme is welcome. Elm Street, Tales from the Crypt, Hellraiser. All right, back to the songs. Addams Family theme, of course, unless there's a hammer involved. Anything from Rocky Horror is acceptable. Don't Fear the Reaper. Don't add this song. I get it, it's about suicide. It's featured perfectly in the opening credits for the original miniseries of Stephen King's The Stand. It is, in fact, the only good part of that entire miniseries. And it's in John Carpenter's Halloween. And it's tired. And all anyone is going to think about is Will Ferrell's gut. Rejected. Werewolves of London. Yes. Bad Moon Rising. Yes. Hungry Like the Wolf. No. I've heard it done before. Don't do that. Don't add songs that only have the most vague of connections. Just the title. Your Bats Out of Hell by Meatloaf. Your Devil Inside by In Excesses. Your Abracadabras by your Steve Millers. Ghost Town by the Specials gets a pass. I know it's about nightclubs getting shut down due to violence, but I don't care. It's atmospheric as fuck. Not getting the pass, though, Zombie by the Cranberries. They're not talking about Daryl Dixon. They're not talking about Barbara at the beginning of Night of the Living Dead. They're talking about Northern Irish bloodshed. Did you hear about that car bomb? Oh, and would you save me a Snickers? There are songs that seem like they have obvious connections, but have none. Clap for the Wolfman, I hear a lot. That's a song about Wolfman Jack, who does have ties to the holiday, but it's also a song about getting your song on DJ Wolfman Jack's radio show. Don't do it. I know you're all going to add Goo Goo Muck, and that's great. The Cramps is my favorite band of all time, and anything to get their sound out there is a bonus, or a virus. But I'd like to hope you're adding it because it appeared on the soundtrack to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and not because of that musical number in Wednesday. Also, listen to me closely. You already heard a snippet of the only acceptable song from A Nightmare Before Christmas. Every other song is about how great Christmas is, and how horrible Halloween is. Think about it. And stop adding it. It's a Christmas movie. There is plenty of unexplored Halloween material to choose from. Like what? How about K-Star? The Headless Horseman. You'll be tempted by the dulcet tones of Bing Crosby's cover, but you must resist. K-Star and her orchestra bring the entire holiday to life, and it's a classic, and everyone will think you've got taste.
When the spooks have a midnight jamboree, they break it up with a fiendish glee.
Ghosts are bad, but the one that's cursed is the Headless Horseman. He's the worst.
When he goes jogging across the land, holding his noggin right in his hand, demons take one look and groan.
Then they hit the road for parts unknown.
Other classics? I Put a Spell on You. Nina Simone's version. Is that sacrilege? No, because Screamin' Jay Hawkins is better served by Little Demon. Use that.
Down in the valley on the foggy hill rocks stood a crazy little demon blowing his top, fire in his eyes and smoke from his head. You gotta be real cool to hear the words he said. He did
Not obscure enough or too old for you? Too bad, because you're also in the screaming neighborhood with Screamin' Lord Sutch. You can use Murder in the Graveyard or Jack the Ripper. It's your choice, but only a fool would pass up the opportunity to watch an entire crowd of costumed characters twitch involuntarily at the Ripper's whistle.
With a little black bag that's oh so tight. He's got a big...
You gotta have Ghouls Night Out by the Misfits, for the ladies. Also for the ladies, Superstition by Stevie Wonder. Just because anything by Stevie is for the ladies, it's a great song, and it's in The Thing.
Very superstitious. Writings on the wall. Very superstitious. Let a doctor fall.
How about Dead Souls by Joy Division? Add that. Add anything by She Wants Revenge. Look, I'm going to throw a link to my Halloween playlist in the show notes. It's called Ghoularama. But I also want to know what you're listening to as the days grow short and the shadows grow long. Hit me up with that information and enjoy my playlist. You know what song's definitely going to be on there? Lou Reed's Halloween Parade. I find it to be the most relatable song at this time of year.
But there ain't no Harry and no Virgin Mary. You won't hear those voices again. And Johnny Rio and Rotten Rita, you never see those faces again. This Halloween is something to be sure, especially to be here without you. There's the Born Again Losers and the Lavender Boozers and some crack team from Washington Heights. The boys from Avenue B, the girls from Avenue D, a Tinkerbell in tights. This celebration somehow gets me down, especially when I see you're not around. There's no Peter Pedantic.
Come and listen to a dog that's hip. Here we go, it's Ribs Picks, yeah!
Thank you, HP. I'm angling to get Ripley featured on Stupid Pet Tricks. And Ripley gets her due this week in more ways than one. I squeezed her out of last week's episode nearly entirely, but I'm doing penance now. This is Good Boy.
Look who's here.
I guess I'm next. I should never have come here.
When I saw the trailer for a horror movie from the family dog's perspective, I had the same reaction I had when I saw the trailer for Backdraft. How the fuck have we gone this long without somebody making a film? It's so insanely simple. How fucking oblivious are we all? Everyone loves horror, everyone loves dogs, although there is a stumbling block. And if you watched the trailer and you own a dog, it hit you before the coming soon hit the screen. We love dogs. We want to see dogs in movies. But we don't want to see dogs in peril. And we definitely don't want to see them harmed or killed. So the premise of the film is an intriguing one, but it's also kind of a dare. Well, let me assure you, without giving anything away, you can see this movie. But should you? Yes, it's a fucking achievement. Indy, the dog actor who stars in Good Boy, should have his name added to the pantheon of animal stars beside Benji, and Rin Tin Tin, and Lassie, and Jed, and Darla. If you don't know those last two, welcome to Midnight Viewing. There's a lot you need to catch up on. This dog puts in a performance. Maybe it's the Gary Cooper, Steve McQueen kind of performance where Indy's just being Indy, but I'd counter that the dog is way more expressive than either of those actors. The film is nearly silent, and while the narrative is at times purposely confusing, Indy's place in it and his motivations never are. Indy the dog, playing a dog named Indy, is in fact director Ben Leonberg's pet, and I can't really envision another scenario where it would have been this effective, unless you trained a dog from birth to do everything in a script. So the story is, Indy's owner Shane has a terminal illness, though it seems to be in remission. Shane, after his last hospital stay, has chosen to eschew city life and take up residence in his grandfather's secluded cabin in the woods. The electricity is shoddy, the weather is terrible, Shane is frequently in the grips of a nostalgic reverie or something much worse, and the sounds from the basement are nothing less than disturbing. And Indy has to deal with all of it. There are scare scenes that are super effective in this flick, and overall it's a beautifully rendered film. You get used to the fact that our point of view is no higher than 3 feet off the ground for the entire film really quickly, as you do the fact that every human is basically just a set of legs or a silhouette. The atmosphere is killer, and there are moments of genuine shock. And yet, something just doesn't quite hang. Everything individually is working like gangbusters, but as a whole it feels oddly disjointed. Those scare scenes that I mentioned as effective, they start out with slow and quiet setups with mounting dread, and at the end there's a good jump scare. But somewhere between setup and payoff, there's always an odd disconnect. It may be the filmmaker working against that central problem. We don't want to see in any peril or panic, but somehow he's overcorrected, because as good as any individual scare or scene happens to be, you never get the sense that the dog is going to come to harm. And the film ultimately makes the same fucking choice that nearly every horror movie has been making lately. Horror is grief, everybody. In any event, you need to go see Good Boy. It's in the theaters now. It deserves your money. I don't know how the filmmaker's going to follow this up with something else unless he's been making something with another pet of his for the past few years, but Good Boy is worth a look. All right, programs, let's talk Tron.
Since time began, man has gazed at the stars and he has wondered, am I alone? So much talk of AI and big tech today. Virtual worlds, what are they going to look like? When will we get there? Well, folks, we're not going there. They are coming here. I would like you to meet Ares, the ultimate soldier. He's biblically strong, lightning fast, supremely intelligent. And if he is struck down on the battlefield, I will simply make you another.
You think you're in control of this? You're not. What are you?
I'm looking for something. Something I do not understand.
Hang on!
A malfunctioning program who wants to live. Why is that?
It's just a feeling.
Fascinating.
I've now seen every iteration in the theater. I remember when the first film was released and asking my cousin Bruce what Tron meant. I was 9. He said it's a nickname. His real name is Electronics. And on some level, I still believe that to be true. Okay, groundbreaking first film that nobody went to, but is the definition of not just a cult hit, but a wildly influential one. I figure you know the story and the story of its sequel from 20 years later, now 15 years ago, but there is one thing I did want to touch on about those previous films. The first film's world was the game grid, and that was created and controlled by the MCP through ENCOM. The second film does not take place in that world. The second film is the grid, and that was constructed by Kevin Flynn's program Clue, also at ENCOM. The new film, Tron Ares, takes place in neither of those. This one is a whole new grid under the control of the Dellinger Corporation. Thus, everything is red and not blue, or white. That's David Dellinger's grandson running the show these days, so Dellinger, and by extension Sark, and by extension the MCP itself, was played by David Warner. His grandson was hinted at in Tron Legacy with Cillian Murphy playing the role. This film has Evan Peters from American Horror Story step into the part instead. Something tells me that Cillian Murphy wouldn't have been quite so apoplectic in his portrayal. I'm not saying Peters is bad, I love him, and I'm still holding out for a James Cagney biopic starring him. It's just that he does a lot of screaming. This is a sequel, not a reboot. The first film ended with Flynn brought back to the world and taking over ENCOM. The sequel ends with Flynn merging with the grid to allow his son Sam and newly created organism Cora to get out and into our world, where they've both disappeared entirely. So, Tron Legacy began with Flynn's son, inheritor of ENCOM, who's always searching for his dad, doing some mad tech, and then base jumping off a skyscraper. Tron Ares begins with Eve Kim, played by Greta Lee, who's inherited ENCOM from her sister who's gone missing. By that I mean she's dead. But if there's a sequel, I bet we're going to get a digital version of her. We meet Eve snowmobiling down a treacherous mountain peak before engaging in some mad tech and solving the film's central problem. A little dramatic mirroring is fun and all, but the last movie didn't exactly have a coherent plot line, so maybe don't do that. That central problem is that both ENCOM and Dellinger Corp are in an arms race for the permanence code. Instead of sending humans into the computer, they're pulling programs into our world, but they only last 29 minutes before derezzing. It makes sense for the company to be offering on-demand weapons and soldiers to man them from a storyline point of view. It's just that I don't give a shit to see them here. I know I've mentioned this before, but this is an Addams Family situation. Wouldn't it be a hoot to see Gomez buying lettuce? No, not really. I live in this stupid world. I came to a movie theater to see the grid, the light cycles, the bizarre high-ally matches, guards that look like they've been dressed from a sporting goods section of an O'Reilly Auto Parts. Alarm bells went off in Tron Ares from the opening moments for me. A full 2-minute recap of the previous films, the players, their places, or lack thereof in the coming narrative. It might as well have been a Star Wars opening crawl for how clumsy it all was. And then the score kicked in, and the film began. And I was hooked, god damn it. I've said previously, if there's any one thing that's unassailable across this franchise, it's the soundtrack. Each one is so goddamn perfectly attuned to the visuals. This is no exception. This isn't a Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross soundtrack, it's 9 Inch Nails. And honestly, I can't think of the last time that a score was not only doing as much heavy lifting to create mood and atmosphere, but was actually succeeding like this one does. This soundtrack was a marvel. It made action more breathless, emotions more deeply felt, and it added this indefinable gravitas to the whole thing. Side note, Ross and Reznor, like Daft Punk before them, show up in the film. Daft Punk were DJs at a club. Ross and Reznor are fighter pilots trying to take down a recognizer. It helps that the whole thing is gorgeously shot. Every scene, you can tell, has been lavished with attention and care. That shouldn't be a point of discussion with an $180 million feature, but even that isn't assured in the current Hollywood landscape. The action is superlative here. That's hand-to-hand as well as vehicular. I think the action here is actually stronger than it was in Superman. Now let's talk Ares. Ares, the ultimate grid warrior, designed by Dellinger to not only be his standard bearer, but Ares is also the new MCP. Although with roles slightly reversed. In the first film, Sark and Dellinger answered to the MCP. Here, the MCP answers to Dellinger, and he can derez them in either world. Ares is basically Tron, the character Tron, if Tron had started out with a head full of bad wiring and eventually had to start making moral decisions and become the blue Boy Scout we barely know and barely love. Isn't it hilarious that this whole film series is called Tron, and he's only kind of in the first film, and virtually not in the second film, and he is not at all in Ares? Anyway, Ares himself is kind of a fascinating character. And you're on the journey with him from the moment we meet him, because he is too. He begins questioning his programming nearly immediately, and always without lines of dialogue. I don't know what your opinion of Jared Leto is. All I hear is hate for him. Lately, it's of the he's a creeper variety. I don't care, because that's just the latest angle of hatred towards him. I get it. He's a pretty boy who rocketed to acting fame. And then he decided to be a rock star, and he succeeded at that too. But I have never seen a bad performance from him. But the Joker, shut the fuck up. That was Thug Joker. He may not be to your liking, he wasn't to my liking, but it was a committed performance and a fucking good one at that. I believed him. I always believe him. From Jordan Catalano right up to Ares. And his performance here is the cleanest I think I've seen from him. No tics, no actorly bullshit, just a confused character trying not only to understand his own agency, but a place in one of two worlds where one of them is hunting him down and the other one he can only exist in for no longer than 30 minutes. It's a cool story. And unlike the last film, you don't have to stare at CGI Jeff Bridges with such detached horror that you have no idea what any of the scenes he's in are actually about. And I want to point out one sequence in particular. You know how every film's attempt for the past 40 years to visualize cyberspace has been laughably terrible? Is this a spinning information cube I see before me? Its handle turned toward my obscenely pixeled cursor? Lawnmower Man, hackers, you remember. Well, they give us a scene where Dellinger hacks into the NCOM mainframe. It's Ares and his team on a Mission Impossible style sequence, and it's fucking great. Special shout out to Jodie Turner-Smith as Athena. She's Ares' right hand and eventual rival. I remember her as one of the best things from the Night Flyer series from 2018. If you haven't seen that, give it a watch. Now listen, the script here is halfway to where it needed to be. Maybe 1 to 2 more drafts were necessary. And after that, they needed someone with an ear for language to come in and rewrite all of the dialogue. Not some of it, all of it. Also, please stop adding comic relief characters to films unless they're actually funny. Don't rely on the actor. Otherwise, you just have characters doing and saying the things that we've seen be funny in the past, and that's not enough. Either make us laugh or drop the character. A lot of the plot here makes no sense. A lot of the situations seem pulled out of some bullshit screenwriting book. Stop reading those. They're written by people who are not famous for screenwriting. It's like listening to a guidance counselor. You think those 15 minutes they met with you over a 4-year period qualifies them to put you on a path for the rest of your life? There are some genuine surprises to be had in Tron Ares, none of which I'm going to spoil here, but there's a sequence that made me gasp multiple times. And the ending is set up for another sequel, which I'm sure we're going to get sometime in 2032. I didn't expect to like this movie at all, and now I want to watch it again. Sure. No, I'm not sneaking you in. We'll wait for streaming. That is going to do it for the weekly roundup. Tune in this Friday to midnight viewing. We've got the next 2 episodes of the final season of Tales from the Dark Side. Spoiler alert, we loved them. Check that out. Meanwhile, over on the Patreon page, that's patreon.com/Father Malone, you can hear that episode right now, as well as new series Moranis Fest, where frequent collaborator HP and I are looking at the cinematic efforts of Rick Moranis. Also on the Patreon, you'll find A Little Old Lady Got Mutilated Late Last Night. That's the other series I'm doing. That's the one with Paul Waller from A Year in Horror. We are taking a journey through the werewolf movies of past decades, starting with the granddaddy of them all, The Wolfman from 1941. Both those shows are available now, but if money's tight, and I know they are, you can do us a huge favor just by liking the show or giving it 5 stars, or if you're on Apple, write a positive review. That would fucking open up so many possibilities for us, and it would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, here's a bit from Tron, because the other film is mainly barking. Yeah, like that.
Extract the code and delete the carrier.
Good, sir. Extracting the permanence code would delete the carrier from the grid and from your world.
Once upon a time, there was a weather, and its name was Ares. And Ares obeyed every command of Julian Dillinger, and Julian Dillinger made $1 trillion
and wrote his name on the face of time in blood. Now, whatever Pepcac error is behind these feelings,
I'm going to find it and rip it out of you. Do I make myself clear?
Perfectly.
Program dismissed.
The creature also said, I am fearless, and therefore powerful.